This week on the Four Rivers Ag Report, the crop insurers are getting ready. Are you? Also, green acres in November, and I find something scarier than Halloween. All that and much more on the Four Rivers Ag Report. Welcome to the Four Rivers Ag Report. I'm Fred Peralta. Well, nearly 80 on Wednesday and barely 50 on Thursday. Yeah, it's late October, which can only mean one thing. The price for crop insurance payments is about to be set by the feds. Well, for most of us, that price setting wouldn't have caused us the merest moment's notice. Now, with so many farmers putting in claims for the first time, well, the USDA should consider putting the announcement on ESPN in prime time. I wonder who the Mel Kiper Jr. of grain prices is. Well, since it's been a long time, if ever since so many farmers were counting on some sort of insurance payment, I thought we'd visit with a crop insurance expert and see how the process is going. It's been such a crazy year with the crop. We invited John Fall, the supervising claim adjuster for Country Financial, to come back and tell us what the heck has been happening in the crop insurance front.
Fred, we haven't had anything to do. I'm going to head out to Florida next week and be gone for the rest of the winter.
Okay. No, and you have a bridge to sell me too, right?
Yes. No, actually, it's been real busy, and I think last time I was here, we talked about it being a record year, and it is. The yields are a little bit better than what we expected, especially on the soybeans, but the corn in southern Illinois was as bad as what we expected. I know in the central and northern Illinois, in 2/3 of the state, the yields were in some fields better than expected, worse than expected. The average is still going to be below average, average or below. But the beans are probably better than what we expected. But a lot of corn claims, and we're into the heat of the battle now, and it's going to be a challenge for us.
Now, there was so much difference between some good fields and some bad fields. What have you seen as far as high end and low end of yields, and how does a farmer, I mean, is crop insurance handled on a per farm basis or by field?
That's a good question, Fred, and the crop insurance is handled whatever plan the farmer chooses.
Okay.
A farmer can choose to have insurance by field. In other words, each field stands on its own. The premium on that is a little more expensive, or they can have all the fields in a section thrown together, or they can have all the fields in the county thrown together. Okay. So the county, if you throw everything together in the county, that's what we call an enterprise unit. If you go by section, that's a basic. If you go by field, that's what we call an optional unit. But enterprise unit, a lot of farmers have taken that type of a plan because the premium is a little bit cheaper. Okay,
so you've been throughout most of the state, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
And what are there different problems for different parts of the state as far as how you're handling your crop insurance claim?
No, all the claims are handled the same. It's just a matter of gathering the production if they've taken it to the elevator. I know in southern Illinois, there wasn't much corn crop, very little settlement sheets, so we're completing the claim by the appraisals that we did
earlier in the summer.
Did earlier, yes. So all the procedures are the same. Any claim over $200,000 is subject to an audit, and any claim over $500,000 is you have to get the RMA involved, and they work the claim with you.
Okay, so farmers, they've had the claim adjuster come on out, scout out the fields in the height of the drought. We've got some rain. What sort of issues are you seeing now?
Well, the issues we're seeing now is it's basically up to the farmer to get us the information and then us to settle the claim. The major issue that we've had, and it's been widespread throughout the state, but it's been worse in southern Illinois, is the aflatoxin issue. And that's been a major concern, I would say, because aflatoxin is covered by your insurance policy if it has a positive test of over 20 parts per billion. And the issue is that if the elevator takes a test, the insurance company cannot use that.
So really, a lot of elevators have been testing.
Most of the elevators have been testing for it. The problem is, for insurance purposes, it's got to be by a certified lab or a third-party lab, and the sample's got to be gathered by a third party or the crop adjuster. So some of the issues have been that the elevators and the third-party test have not lined up. So that's a potential problem for farmers.
So all those guys that went straight from the field to the elevator may be having issues that they weren't considering when they were getting the corn in before it got too bad.
Yeah, that's correct. But as far as country goes, we held numerous farmer meetings, and we've sent out communication to our farmers that if they thought there was a potential for aflatoxin, to make sure they contacted us so we could let them know the proper procedures to follow. You're okay if you notified your claims adjuster and they got a third-party test, and we got that test, and if the elevator will honor that third-party test if there's a discrepancy.
So there's a whole lot of components going into getting your claim settled, correct?
Yes, and next week the fall price comes out, so all the claims should be able to be settled once the fall price is announced. We will know, we can get the information, the fall price will be announced, and that's what we at Country have been doing. We've been verifying policies, gathering the information because it was an early harvest. So once a price comes out, we should be, and we are ready to go with most of our policies. The problem is when you got a lot of policies, you can only do
so many at a certain time.
So much, and then, like I said earlier, if a claim is over 200,000, then that's a whole new procedure.
Right. So you got all these claims waiting. Fall price will come out. How long is it going to take to settle? I mean, this is a record year. This is the worst crop insurance claim, I imagine, ever for the state of Illinois. How long is it going to take to get everything settled and farmers paid?
Well, our goal at Country is to have everything paid by the 1st of February. And we will do everything we can to do that. And a lot of that depends on if the policy was written correct, if the acres are correct, and we can get the audits completed and get them paid. But we will be in good shape on getting people their check as soon as possible. And a lot of people, Fred, have requested a 2013 payment.
Okay.
So we've kind of moved those to the back of the list and trying to get everybody paid that wanted in 2012. As soon as the fall price comes out next week, we've actually already paid over 300 claims at Country, and we actually have been making partial payments or prepayments for a lot of people if they've needed it.
Okay, real quick question,
Yes,
percentage number. How many farmers that didn't have crop insurance last year are going to have crop insurance this coming season?
I would think all of them. I would think 100%, but still.
You got some crusty old guys out there who aren't going. Okay.
And you know, as I said or last time I was here, 80% of the farmers in Illinois carry crop insurance. I would say up to 85 or 86, 87% will have it next year.
Okay.
In my opinion.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot. You got you're going to leave here and get to work, buddy. There's a lot of people counting on you.
Well, thanks for having me, Fred.
Thank you much. Since so many more of you are in recliners watching us this week than in the past month or so, it's been easy to tell that the harvest is almost wrapped up. Here with those numbers and more is Monica Becker. Monica?
Thanks, Fred. I'm Monica Becker. Harvest is wrapping up, and I don't know how many more of these NASS reports we'll have for this growing season. Statewide, corn is reported at 92% harvested, up from 87% last week, and quite a bit higher from the 5-year average of 62%. In our district, you could say, for all practical purposes, we're done. Corn harvest is reported to be 98% completed. Soybeans are quickly catching up to corn now that farmers have been able to work around the rainstorms. Statewide, soybeans are reporting at 80% harvested, and locally we're right there at 79%. Soil moisture continues to improve. Topsoil is rated 2% very short, 12% short, 82% adequate, and 4% surplus. Some more of that moisture is getting a bit further down, but subsoil is still behind at 5% very short, 34% short, and 61% adequate. It should be noted that while the eastern portion of the state suffered some of the worst during the drought, we're doing pretty well recharging our soil moisture. Only the southeast district is in better shape with subsoil moisture. Caterpillar is seeing the earth moving away from their showrooms. The world's largest maker of tractors and excavators has dropped its 2012 earnings forecast for the second time this year. Continued economic weakness and uncertainty is being blamed for a slowdown of sales. Retailers are selling off inventories rather than buying new equipment, and this in turn is forcing Caterpillar to slow down or idle some production lines. For 2012, the company now expects to earn between $9 to $9.25 per share on sales of $66 billion. Prior to this week's announcement, the company had planned on share prices of $9.60 and sales of over $67 billion. Maybe if they made a grape stomper, things would look differently. The Illinois Agriculture Statistics Service produced a study that shows that there is plenty to whine about in Illinois. Wine production in Illinois has increased by 16% over the past 5 years, from 564,000 gallons in 2006 to over 651,000 last year. The number of wineries in the state has increased from 77 in 2006 to over 105 wineries in 2011. Someone is enjoying the fruit of the vine, because while the current capacity to make wine is just over 1 million gallons, it is estimated that capacity will double in 5 years and triple to 3 million gallons by 2021. How about some caviar with that wine? If so, I know who to not ask for it. 2 Missouri men are facing over $43,000 in fines when Iowa officials caught them trawling for sturgeon fish out of season and hauling their nets over to Illinois to avoid size limitations. Get that? These guys were caught fishing on the Iowan side of Mississippi near Wapello. They set up commercial fishing nets out of season and then took the nets to the Illinois side of the river. Why? Because Illinois season also allows for fishermen to keep smaller fish. Iowa, 27 inches, which usually is an older fish. Illinois, 24 inches, a much younger mating female fish. And why go to all this effort? Sturgeon eggs can be worth as much as $100 per pound. Perhaps you know it as caviar. Now finally, in a very animal-heavy newscast, the State Farm Insurance Company has come out with their updated stats about how likely you are to come into a little dough on the road and on your fender. Every year, the insurer publishes the rankings on which states are most likely to see deer auto accidents. And for once, Illinois doesn't lead the pack in the bad news category. West Virginia is rated number 1, followed by Iowa and South Dakota. Illinois is way down the list at 29th, up from 31st last year, but who's counting? The safest state to drive in, if you have some sort of strange animal magnetism, is of course Hawaii. The chances of hitting a deer, 1 in 170 drivers will have this unpleasant driving experience, and the average damage, if there's no bodily harm done to the human, not the deer, is $2,800. And who doesn't say a buck doesn't go as far these days? That's it for this week. I'm Monica Becker.
And with me on the set is our good friend from Terrydale Farm, Todd Easton, who's also a crop watcher for Farm Week. And he's our go-to guy for local ag stuff. He's the guy I drive by your farm every day on my way to and from work. And you've been busy this last month.
Yeah, the funniest things happen when they build a major highway right next to your farm last summer.
Yeah, you know, it's the new route
18
north of Charleston.
Yeah.
And I've been able to keep a good eye on you for a while now.
A lot of people have.
Can't get away with anything.
Do things right, yes.
Okay, so how did the harvest go for you this year?
Well, it wasn't what we'd like in a normal year. The corn harvest, by comparison, was quite bad.
Yes.
We didn't even get near to 100 bushels, and as far as the farm average, I had 2 fields that went over 100, and I've been told that that's pretty good.
That has been good. You went in early, relatively early, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. We take these silly gambles, and sometimes they work. We decided, we knew that there was going to be stock quality issues. We have a good dryer, and we decided to go in and be aggressive harvesting early, and it was still pretty wet. It dried down a ways, but you know, some people had waited, and some of our landowners wanted us to wait till it was around 15%, and it never got there. It was really weird this year how the corn, because the way the stalk died didn't allow the ear to dry very good.
Mm-hmm. So you said you got very bad in some field. What was the low and what was the high?
Oh, the low. Well,
-0.
I had some of my very worst timber soil made close to 30.
Wow.
And yeah, that's the worst I got. And from what I heard, that's
not as
the
bad as
worst
some.
of,
Yeah.
I've heard like 2 bushel an acre.
Hardly worth getting the
Down
tractor
south.
out if it wasn't to clear the land.
Yeah, really.
You know, so now, driving by, I noticed you had to wait a while before you got the beans.
Yeah.
You know, how did your beans turn out?
Better than what we'd ever anticipated. This year's thrown a lot of different curveballs, but the beans, they ended up catching some of these late rains that were too late for the corn at all.
Right.
But the beans caught them, and they actually grew a little bit, greened up, made some more, and you know, came in on average in the 40s for just about everybody.
Right.
Which is, you know, I mean, usually you're shooting for a mid-50s average, and so, you know, for the drought we had, that's not bad. Everybody's pretty happy with it.
Now, you're a young guy. I know you haven't seen a drought like this. In talking to other people, have you ever seen a season like this where we were so dry for so long and then all of a sudden, poof?
Actually, an older farmer mentioned that this would happen.
Really?
So, yeah, he said, "You watch, one extreme follows another, and we'll be mudding it out this fall." Which there's so much water holding capacity in the soil that, you know, luckily that it hadn't been mudding out, but still it just rains, and you know, you stop and go, and so.
Yeah. So I have also noticed that you will put in wheat this year. And
Yeah.
Have you done that in the past?
It was about 10 years ago. We did wheat on and off, and tried to double crop beans behind it. Mm-hmm. We're just to the point where, you know, it just barely works here, and any farther north it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And you know, down south they do it a lot. Mm-hmm. So we decided to try it because when we made this decision and bought the seed, it was still very dry, and wheat's a dry limb crop. Right. And we were looking for an alternative to do with some of our corn on corn ground. We won't be doing near as much of that this year. Right. Because there was a pretty bad yield drag on corn again.
Well, you had a bad yield no matter what.
Yeah.
But corn on corn was even worse than.
Yeah, you could take about 30 bushel off of what, you know, say you're getting 70s, you could take 30 off that, and that was your corn on corn yield.
Wow.
And that's a hit.
Yeah, that is a hit. That is a hit. Now, you said you were dried on the farm. Did you notice any, did you have any mold problems?
Oh, the aflatoxin,
yep.
I call it. We have very little bit, and we had the elevator test it, and we're keeping it very cool in the bins, but I think there's spots of it. It wasn't full blown like some people were afraid. Mm-hmm. There were spots here and there. They're able to get it through somehow to the right buyers, but it's something if you've got corn in the bin, which is not very common this year. Most everybody took it to the elevator. Then you've really got to watch out for it. Right. It could get bad.
Yeah. So this year, let's hope we never repeat a year like this.
Oh, we don't want history to repeat itself in this case.
So are you planning, you're not going corn on some of your ground this year, you're going back to beans to rotate some of the crop around. Yeah. What are your big plans are? I mean, corn prices are so high, it'd be awfully tempting.
Yeah, it's a bit tempting. When you take I mean, for 2 years in a row, you take a 30 bushel or more hit, then it, you know, takes the luster off of it. Like I said, 2 years in a row, that's a trend. It's not an anomaly.
Right. And so, well, Todd, I got to thank you for helping us out this year. We'll be talking to you again after you had a nice chance to sleep some nights. And, you know, thanks so much for helping us out. Keep an eye on the crops in Coles County for us.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Cameron Craig has filed a couple of reports on the glacier that sculpted our area. Well, when the folks in the geology department at Eastern Illinois University started looking at the landscape and the activities that take place on that landscape, they found a strange correlation. Cameron Craig reports on that in this week's Under the Four Rivers Sky.
What we're doing is basically replicating a study that was done by John Fraser Hart, a geographer from the University of Minnesota, that he did back in the 1970s, early 1980s, where he looked at the different types of farm structures found in different agricultural regions across the eastern part of the United States. More or less tying in different cultural, physiographical features with what types of farming and then what types of farm structures are found in each one of those regions.
Farmland in the glaciated area of Illinois is much different than farming in where it's not glaciated, just because of all the deposits and stuff like that, and just the fertility of the soil and the landscape and trees and all these things. And so we're studying the farm structures and how they differ in the glaciated farmland as opposed to the unglaciated, and just the different kinds of farming and things like that, and just the different structures and how they were used, and just historically what different structures are used for. And so we're just kind of driving around looking for differences in that, and just taking pictures and observing the landscape and different things that are around, and just presence of different kinds of agriculture.
We selected two study areas. Charleston is in the advantageous location of being more or less right on the terminal moraine, where the last glacial advance ended 15 to 20,000 years ago. South of that line, which again is more or less south of the city of Charleston, has not been glaciated in the past 200 to 300,000 years. North of that line was subject to the Wisconsin glacial advance, which occurred again 15 to 20,000 years ago. So we selected one township in Coles County and one township in Cumberland County. The Coles County township was Humboldt. The Cumberland County township was Union. We selected them more or less because they were within driving distance of Charleston, and they did depict two very different types of physical landscapes to select different hopefully different types of farm structures from. Historically, the Grand Prairie region of Illinois, the glaciated region of east central Illinois, was not farmed right away as settlers moved west across Illinois because it was too flat, which made it too wet. So until the technology could come into play, the ditching and the tiling to help drain that, what would become cropland, by the time farmers and settlers came back to central Illinois, farms had grown in size, technology had advanced to the point where cash grain farming essentially dominated that agricultural landscape from the start. Historically, there were very few livestock types in east central Illinois, simply because all of the land was used basically just for cropland production. Information that I would say this study provides farmers is just kind of a glimpse into the geographic history, both the cultural and physical geographic history of this region. Even, I would venture to guess that there are many farmers who kind of just take it for granted what types of buildings and structures and types of agricultural practices that take place on either side of the terminal moraine of the last glacial advance, that many of them just maybe don't even know the geographic history.
Well, I think it's just a good opportunity to gain experience in doing research project, and just further my own knowledge in that, and just to work with a faculty member. I think that's very valuable, and I think it's interesting, and I like all different kinds of geography, but I really do like the cultural, and I enjoy taking pictures, so that's been fun, and just seeing the different stuff. So I think it's just an all-around good experience, lots of different things to take from it.
And finally, Halloween is next week, and that usually means that if I turn off the porch light and close my curtain, my chocolate consumption will go way up. But it also means that the election is a week after that. One of the great benefits of watching WEIU is that you won't see those horrible political ads going back and forth and back and forth. After an evening of watching those, you would have thought we had emptied our prisons just in time for these guys to run for office. Elections have become polarizing, expensive, and it often seems a race to the bottom. My old man had a lot of things to say, and I made a point as a teenager of not listening to many of them. But the one thing I heard him say was, "This is a great country, the greatest, and it only asks for 3 things in return: pay your taxes, pay attention, and vote." The first thing is painful, the second thing is hard, The third is your patriotic and civic duty. Now, this is a difficult time, and I doubt that we can find any two people who agree on every issue. But our American elections ask us as citizens to stand up and take responsibility, to look past the BS and the bunkum, the posturing and the baby kissing, and find men and women who will take their responsibility to heart and lead the various forms of government that we have chosen to organize. And it's easy to see why most qualified of us avoid getting involved in running for public office. I was a library board president in the past, and I'd get angry phone calls late at night when the latest murder mystery wasn't on the shelf. Public service is hard and a thankless job. Now multiply my angry mystery reader by 100 million. But somehow people keep stepping up to the plate to run for office, and we keep trying to choose the best, most qualified person. I know sometimes you want to hold your nose. Go ahead, pinch away. But get your behind up on November 6th and vote. Vote your heart, vote your brain, but vote. This is a great country, the greatest, and only asks for three things in return: pay your taxes, pay attention, and vote. Well, that's it for this week. Work hard, be safe, and enjoy the beautiful sunsets. I'm Fred Peralta, and thanks for watching the Four Rivers Ag Report.